I stopped after reading a sentence while reading my latest book. Scientists trying to reverse aging, to make ourselves young again, to extend human life indefinitely, keep running into the same problem. The very mechanisms that make cells young and capable of dividing endlessly are the same mechanisms that make cells cancerous. Immortality and cancer come from the same biological door. I sat with that for a long time because it felt like nature was telling us something. No matter how advanced our technology becomes, there are limits we were never meant to cross. This is The Gene by Siddhartha Mukherjee, and it changed how I think about biology, about medicine, and honestly, about something close to faith. The Gene, An Intimate History is Siddhartha Mukherjee's sweeping account of genetics, from Gregor Mendel's pea plants in the 1800s to CRISPR gene editing today. Mukherjee is a physician and researcher, and he writes with both scientific precision and genuine narrative skill. This isn't a dry textbook. It's a story of how humanity slowly uncovered the code that builds every living thing. I studied science in school, so I had some vague memory of genetics from biology class. But this book completely reframed how I understand it. By the end, I didn't just understand genes intellectually. I understood what they mean for who we are, who our children will be, and what the limits of human intervention actually are. Let me tell you what fascinated me the most about this book. Before reading it, I understood genes in a vague, abstract way, something to do with eye color and height. What Mukherjee shows you is how deeply and completely genes shape almost everything about us. Our predisposition to disease, our personality tendencies, our risk of mental illness, our response to medication, even aspects of behavior we assume are purely a result of upbringing or environment. Mukherjee writes about this partially through his own family's history, a history of schizophrenia and mental illness that runs through multiple generations. That personal thread isn't just memoir for its own sake. It demonstrates, in the most direct way possible, how genetics is not abstract science. It is deeply, often painfully personal. Reading this section, I found myself thinking about my own family, about patterns that repeat, about how much of who we are was decided before we were even born. That is a strange thing to sit with, because so much of how we live assumes we are the authors of our own lives, and genetics quietly complicates that assumption. Now, here is something I want to be honest about. This is my own reflection, not something Mukherjee himself argues in the book. As I read about the sheer complexity of how genes work, the precision of DNA replication, the elegance of how a single fertilized cell becomes a complete human being with trillions of perfectly organized cells, I found myself thinking about something almost spiritual. This system is as intricate, so perfectly calibrated, that it's difficult for me not to feel a sense of something at work. Scientists will rightly point to evolution, to billions of years of trial and error producing this complexity through natural selection. I understand that explanation. But understanding the mechanism does not remove the wonder. If anything, understanding how precisely calibrated the system is made me feel more, not less, that there is something profound about how life is structured. Cell is divine. Cell is the elegance of natural law. Whatever word you use, the complexity itself feels like it means something. This is a personal feeling, not a scientific claim. But the book gave me the detailed understanding that made that feeling possible. And this brings me back to where I started, the aging and cancer connection. One of the most mind-bending sections of this book covers the science of aging. Our cells have a built-in limit to how many times they can divide, a kind of internal clock. Scientists have spent decades trying to find ways to override that clock, to keep cells young and dividing indefinitely. But here is the problem. The exact mechanism that allows cells to bypass that limit and divide endlessly are the same mechanisms that drive cancer. A cell that can divide forever, uncontrolled, is not immortal, it is malignant. Every attempt to push past the natural limits of cellular aging runs directly into the risk of cancer. The two are not separate problems, they are the same problem viewed from different angles. I found this genuinely mind bending because it suggests something almost philosophical about the limits of intervention. We can manipulate genes, we can edit them, suppress them, activate them. But the deeper we go, the more we discover that the system has built in safeguards against being pushed too far. No matter how advanced our technology became, there appears to be boundaries we were never meant to cross. And the book makes a compelling evidence based case for that idea. My one criticism, and it's a fair one, is that the book becomes slightly repetitive towards the end. The core themes are established clearly in the first two thirds. By the final section, Mukherjee is largely revisiting similar territory: the tension between genetic determinism and free will, the ethical questions of gene editing, the limits of intervention. It's not a major flaw, but a reader who has fully absorbed the central ideas by the two thirds may find the final chapter less essential than what came before. The Gene is one of the most intellectually rewarding books I've read in years. I came in with a vague, half remembered understanding of genetics from school biology. I finished with a genuine appreciation for how completely our genes shape who we are, and a profound sense of wonder at the complexity of the system that makes that possible. This is a book that works whether you come from a science background or not. Mukherjee is a skilled enough writer to make complex genetics accessible without dumbing it down. If you have ever wondered how much of who you are was decided before you were born, then you should read this book. And if you want to understand the science behind some of the biggest ethical questions of our time, gene editing, genetic screening, the future of human enhancement, then you should read this book as well. It will not give you easy answers, but it will give you a much deeper understanding of the questions. Have you read The Gene? Tell me in the comments. What was the moment that struck you most? And I'm genuinely curious, does the complexity of biological systems make any of you think about something beyond pure science? Or do you see it purely as the elegant result of evolution, nothing more? I would love to hear different perspectives on that. Subscribe if you want more honest book reviews like this one every week on Lore and Lens. See you in the next one.